Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Cross Cultural Experience. My name is Uche Onyebadi. For those of you who are joining for the very first time, this is a forum where we go across cultures and discover what is going on the other side, so to say. And then if my guest is willing to share the experience, that's wonderful. From time to time, I also share my own experience. And because it's very important for us to really understand and appreciate what happens in other places so that we don't go there thinking that everywhere is the same. People do things differently. It is not in our place to criticize, it's our place to understand what they do, probably why they do so, and then live with it. Now, when we go back to our culture of origin, that's a different kettle of fish. You can do whatever it is that you've been doing in that original culture. All right. Today, I'm going to talk about something that might be of greater interest to parents and guardians who send their kids abroad. And my theater of abroad for this edition is the United States. Now, before I say that, I go on to explain what I mean. Those of us who come from, I'm from Nigeria, from Africa, and probably the rest of the world, developing nations, I mean. You know, when your child is in school, you send a report card, the child also gets it. And so that's where the parents or the guardians monitor what the child does and then can intervene, when necessary. Well, and in those days, we used to know who was doing well in class. There was nothing called privacy. You knew who was doing well in class, who was not doing well in class. And it's kind of served as a motivating factor for us to perform better the next time around. So there was nothing hidden. Actually, I think in primary school in those days, you can just walk into the office and everything is pasted on the board. You knew who was number one in class and who did not perform so brilliantly. All right. So you fast forward. With that mentality, I came to the US and I started teaching and I became the director of a program, in some university, in the Southern Illinois University to be precise, as well as Texas Christian University in Texas. But this experience is mostly about Southern Illinois University. What some parents do not know is that they think that the way transcripts, your kids' results are sent to you in Nigeria or in Ghana, that is exactly the same way it happens in the US. No way. In fact, in the US, and I discovered this as the head of the program, I know how every child is performing. I mean, I just get to Google, put it in my system, and I will know exactly how the child is performing or how the student is performing. But you, as a parent, you may not know. It sounds strange. You can be asking yourself, how I pay the school fees, I pay everything. And so, no, calm down. You may not know. The system is not designed for you to know, especially if the child is considered to be an adult, that is 18 years and above. So the child is supposed to be in a position to make his or her own independent judgment, not necessarily what the parents want to impose. So it is up to the child to sign you up to be allowed to know what he or she is doing in class. It's like I said, it sounds strange. So if your own child, the child you pay for, does not give you the permission to know, to access his or her page, results, and all that, there's no way you will know. Absolutely. There is no way you will know. I was shocked, the first time I started teaching, and I was the head of the department. And some parents will call and I say, oh, sorry, madam, I have this orientation. I had this orientation that we're not supposed to let you know. Now, the best way for you to know is what? Ask your child to give you the access. Once the child gives you the access, no problem. You can access it directly. Here is a story that will illustrate what I mean. In Southern Illinois, there was the parents of a child in school. And I think they were from Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. So they came in, we met somehow. They were happy to meet an African who's a professor as well as a head of department. And they said, "Oh, my child is here." I said, "Oh, okay, which college, which department?" Fortunately, not my department, somewhere else. I said, "Oh, the child is doing well. Oh, yeah, very brilliant kid, doing absolutely well." I said, "Okay, God bless you. God bless the kid." And when is the child graduating? He said, "Oh, maybe 2 years or something like that." I said, "Okay, that's fine." Now the parents told me, "Please keep an eye on what I said." I told them immediately that the system is not designed for me to really keep an eye on the grades. Yes, I can keep an eye on maybe is he okay in the dormitory? Have I seen him in the last 2 weeks or whatever, but not the grades. I can't do that. So we all, they didn't quite understand what I meant, and then they left. Fast forward, like 2 years later, these same parents came all the way, I think all the way from Ivory Coast, or one of them was living in the US. I can't recall, but somebody traveled a long distance. They came for the graduation. Guess what happened? It was when they arrived, parents, you're happy, your child is graduating, you are full of, I'm sure you must have told your friends, "Oh, I'm going for graduation, my child has made it finally." They arrived only to discover, unfortunately, that the child wasn't going to graduate. What? Yes, the child was not to graduate. So what happened? Actually, the child was no longer in school for the past 2 years. They didn't know. But they said, "Oh, we've been asking him, hey, how is your," he always says the result is okay. "Are you on vacation?" "Oh, yeah, we're on spring vacation. We're on summer vacation. We're on fall vacation, whatever." So they've been knowing about vacation, vacation. What they did not know was that the child was not in school because they didn't have access, to the child's performance. And like too many parents, they just relied on the child telling them everything was fine. Everything was not fine. The child was not even in school. So that you can imagine, as a parent, came all the way for graduation only to discover that your child was not going to graduate. In fact, that your child was not in school. The child had been expelled, told to leave because he wasn't performing. So that was when it occurred to me that they actually didn't know. The discussion I had with them earlier, actually didn't know that they didn't have access. And then they didn't ask to be given access. And the child did not give them access. And they did not understand how the system worked. So they had that initial conception, as they did at home, that you will always know, unless something is happening, you will always be told, "No, you cannot, as a parent, as a guardian, you will not have access unless the child grants you the permission to do so." That is the way it works. Unless you find other avenues, go around go around it to find out, which is almost impossible for you to know how the child is performing. Nobody will tell you. Now, you may begin to scream. Why not? The system is so bad. Why is the system not allowing me? Why can't I ask questions? Why can't I call the head of department? Why can't I call the professors to find out how the child is doing? Sorry, the system is designed, like I said earlier, to give the child or your student the authority to allow you into his or her world, academic world, because the child is what? Has been determined to be an adult, 18 years and above, and the child can make his or her own decisions. The good thing about the system, before you think the system is rotten and bad, the good thing about the system is that that same child has multiple opportunities to get advice, either in the department, college, university. There are so many opportunities for the child to get advice or to seek advice and get it in order to make academic progress. But it depends on the child to do so. If the child refuses or declines to, there's nothing you can do. It's actually optional, but those opportunities are there. Because if you are not, if the child is not keeping the grades, you can go to some office. There's always the dean of undergraduate studies. There's an office there where you can seek help and they will help you. But if your child is the one that is just like the child I talked about, whose parents came for graduation, there's nothing you can do. Even myself, as the chair of the department, Texas Christian University, for my own child who is in the same school, for me to sit in and listen to what the person in charge of undergraduate, so associate dean for undergraduate studies was going to tell her. I had to obtain permission. I had to be given a code, which was also sent to the same lady. So the moment I stepped into that room for us to listen to what she wanted to say, the first thing she asked me was, may I see the code? So I gave her the code because I knew how the system worked. So with the code, she now knew that the child had given me authority to sit in and listen to what was happening. So these are some of the things why this program is very important, to understand how other cultures work. And like I said, it's not for you to criticize. It's not for you to say it is the rubbish culture. No, 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 no. That's exactly how things are done. And if you, like I said, parent or guardian, you are sending your child abroad to go and study, you better understand the culture of education in that system. Otherwise, you might end up like the other parent whose kid dropped out of school and they didn't even know. They came for graduation because in their mind it was now time for graduation. And so they came only to discover the child was not going to graduate. The child was not even in school. And they have been paying, sending money to this. It wasn't as if they were not sending, we're sending money all the time. Oh, you pay for this, you pay. The child will write, I need money for whatever. The child was even in the dorm. He was collecting money and having a good time. So the mom was crying. I said, well, things were not bad. So we had to devise another means, send the child to a 2-year college to go and brush up his grades to be readmitted into the same school. That was the solution. And the parents learned the hard way. Okay, if you have any experience you want to share, that will be a direct benefit to you or direct benefit to everybody who watches this program. You know what to do. But just in case you don't, it is called crossculturalexperiences@gmail.com. So send me an email, crossculturalexperiences@gmail.com. I'll get back to you. And then we can take it from there. We've been doing quite a number of things here. We've been talking about how people give names to their kids. We've done that for Kuwait, Ghana, South Korea, Nigeria, and Kenya. We also have shared experiences where people just went to other countries and then just discovered that things are done differently. That is the essence of this program. You're always welcome to watch it. And when you do, please just go ahead and share this experience. It's very, very free. Nobody's charging you to either take part in it as a guest or forward it to your friends. So until I come your way one more time, blessings upon you and goodbye for now.